with that being said, he will not be joining us because he wants everyone to speak on the conditions honestly.
Yes, that's exactly.
So in front of you right now, if you don't have a sheet, let me know. But in front of you, we have the beginning of our City of Hudson Housing and Transportation Committee. And we worked on this with who we have here on my left is Rebecca Garrard. She is from Citizens Action Housing Justice. And she helped put this together with me. And we discussed it, and we also voted on this on our council in the City of Hudson. So when this subject matter came about, and how I met Rebecca, is she has been gathering citizens across New York State and bringing them to the Capitol and fighting and speaking and yelling in front of Cuomo's office and yelling in front of our senators and assemblywomen to take us seriously with our housing crisis. And for many, many years, upstate New York was never included. It was only downstate New York. So now, with the people's power and the people's push, upstate New York has been included. So when the fight was happening, the Hudson City Council passed a resolution letting the governor, letting the senator and assembly know that we support this law for upstate New York and for the city of Hudson. And with that being said, the law was passed. Yay!
What is the name of the law?
It is the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act.
Would you just repeat that?
Sure. The Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act of 2019.
And when was that passed?
June 14th, 2019.
And the cutoff date was June, I believe, 16th. So they had to make that decision right then and there. And thank goodness it passed and it includes us. So what you have before you right now is your rights. Some may know, some may not, and that's what we're here to begin this conversation.
And so before we dive into this, I actually want to say two things. First is sort of practical and logistic, is that we'll be taking pictures for media purposes. So if there's anyone in here who does not want their photograph taken for media purposes, please let me know so that I don't take your picture and publicize it without your permission. Okay. Second is it has been an honor to work with Tiffany, and as she said, I work with tenants, community members, council members, municipalities across the state, but few threw down the way Hudson did. So this is really an amazing city in what your elected officials accomplished, sometimes with resistance, and I really look forward to what is to come in the coming year. So yeah. Okay. Shall we dive in?
Yes.
You want me to go over it? Okay. So the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act encompassed 9 bills that we were going after. As Tiffany very accurately said, 7 were specific to New York City and 3 surrounding counties because previously there were only tenant protections for those regions. 2 looked to expand protections to tenants who lived outside of those regions, and we had some really enormous victories. Stay tuned because part of our conversation will be all the work we have to go because there's a lot.
And there's a sign-in sheet, so don't be afraid. If any of you want to travel with us to Albany to speak your piece, call us, come with us, because it's very important. It means a lot when they say the people have power. If you don't speak up, if you don't show up, what happens? They make their own decisions about your life, about your living arrangements, and then what? Excuse my language, you're assed out, right? So with this being said, a lot of people have been stopping me on the streets, landlords, renters, about, well, how can I raise the rent? Or how can I evict someone? So now the tenant protection within this law, for example, and Rebecca can get into the details. For example, your landlord can't just evict you. You have to have a place to live and go to before you can get evicted. That's a part of the law that has changed, opposed to if your landlord say you're out on the street, you're out on the street. right? Can't find a place to live, can't find a shelter, things of that nature. But the laws have changed to where the landlord has to work with you, regardless of that eviction.
Yep. So this chart shows the previous situation that tenants were in and the rights that are newly afforded as of the passage of the Housing Stability and Tenant Protection Act.
So if you was living with your landlord, as it says on the right-hand side on the first page, if you was a tenant for your landlord for over 3 years, he has to give you 90-day notice, as opposed to, it doesn't matter how many years, they give you a 30-day notice, right? Now it has changed. They have to give you a 90-day notice, give you time to find a place. The only where it pertains to that 30 days, if you was a tenant for a year or less, then that 30 days would pertain to you. But if you was there for 1 to 2 years, or more than a year going on 2 years, you would have a 60-day notice. More than 3 years and up, you would have a 90-day notice. So that would give you, the tenant, some time to find some place.
So after the 90 days, does that go automatically to the courts?
So once you get the notice, you would be expected to follow the eviction notice after the 90 days. So if you did not vacate the premises, then they would have to follow the procedures to have you removed. So this is what we mean when we say we still have more work to do. We still have something called no-fault evictions in this state, where a property owner can evict a tenant through no fault of theirs, right? So it could be because they want to flip the building and import wealthier and whiter people and gentrify your neighborhood, right? And that's completely legal.
And that's what we're seeing now, right?
Sounds familiar, right?
It's happening in Hudson now.
Exactly.
It's still only a judge can actually pursue that, right? A landlord can't just say you have to be out and you got to be out in 30 days. It goes through the courts for the
Correct.
landlord.
So they can give you the notice, and then there's also extensions, and that's on the pages, some of the pages that are following, on how that procedure has been improved. Again, I'm going to keep stressing that it's improved because there's still a lot of inhumane and unacceptable pieces to how these systems operate, right? So we've won improvements. For instance, you used to be able to get a lockout with sometimes without notice. Landlords would just put a lock on your apartment and you wouldn't be able to access your belongings. Or if you got a lockout notice, there would be no date on it that was this is the earliest date that you could receive a lockout, and or it could be a very short notice, like a 72-hour notice, as if that's a reasonable amount of time for anybody to move their belongings out of a residence. So there's been a lot of extensions embedded in that process to make it less cruel, but it's still an inhumane process inherently. Sir?
Have you ever heard of an immediate expulsion and the sheriff locks you out?
So,
Ulster County does.
yeah, so here's that you raise a very good point.
That's scary.
Part of what we still struggle with, right, is since this new legislation has passed, there's what's on the law, and then there's what's being followed. And those two don't always meet. And so a lot of what's problematic with tenant protection law is that it's incumbent upon a community member to self-enforce. And what do we know? We know that the tenant or the person who lives in public housing or a person in a homeless situation is the person who has no power, right? So if it's incumbent upon you to self-enforce your rights with this new, whether it be the old rights you had or new rights, there's a lot of judicial discretion in how that process plays out in court, and courts tend to always favor the property owner in those sorts of cases. And we know that there are local law enforcement departments that are friends with property owners or
Yeah,
code enforcement agencies.
quite a few with that.
Or, right, and so tenants' rights are not being respected and are not being recognized. And so that's a whole nother problematic nature.
On the emergency petition, immediately kicked out with no reason, locked up by the sheriff and elsewhere. And that's how I got here under emergency conditions. And homeless is no fun.
They ain't no fun.
In the wintertime, would you want to try it? That's what I said.
Nope.
It is unfair, inhumane, unacceptable, and sadly, not at all shocking to me to hear that story.
Just want to let you know that.
I thank you for sharing.
Yeah.
On the next page, we have evictions.
That's what I got here.
Yep, so previously in a non-payment eviction, you could get as little as 3 days' notice for an eviction proceeding to commence. Court documents were served with 5 to 12 days before the court date, and you had 72 hours from start to finish of once the eviction was signed.
And that's the way it was, so now that the law has changed,
So now that it's changed, in a non-payment eviction, you must receive notice in writing 14 days prior before commencement of the eviction proceeding. And I'm going to digress slightly here from the timeline of this. To me, one of the most impactful things that was in this law is that previously, if you were being evicted for non-payment, and you, at any point during that court process, came to court with the money that you owed, they could still evict you. There was no legal requirement for them to vacate the eviction, even if you came with the full payment owed. Under this new law, at any point during the eviction proceeding, even if a lockout notice had been issued but you haven't been locked out yet, if you come with the full payment, the judge has no discretion. They must vacate the eviction. They must.
did you guys understand that, the difference? Because before, you give them the money, they still kick you out, and then you're like, I could have kept that money for my next apartment.
That's true.
Right?
Yeah.
So now,
And your deposit's lost.
exactly, so now with the laws have changed, the difference is, can you repeat it again?
Yeah, so the difference is if you come with the rent money owed, they must, the judge does not have discretion on this, he must vacate the eviction. And it specifies that that amount is limited to the rent. So it cannot include late fees or any other types of fees that have been added on.
Maintenance fees,
Yeah.
or anything like that.
Oh, just the rent.
So
Just
just
the
your
rent.
base rent. So if your rent was $800 a month and you owed $1,600, but they've added penalties and late fees accumulating, say another four.
They can't do that anymore.
All you have to come, if you come with the amount of the rent itself that's owed, they have to vacate the eviction and stop it.
And the reason why this meeting, I'll give you 1 second, Mayor. The reason why this meeting is so important is because with these housing laws that have changed, you have landlords that don't respect it, that are not applying themselves to the law, and they're doing what was done in the past. So the point is, you have rights, you can stand up for your rights, you have proof because the law has changed, and they cannot do that, and the tables will turn on them.
Okay.
You got it?
Yeah.
Question, Mary?
So what happens if somebody was about to get evicted, they go to court, and Department of Social Service was willing to pay that back rent that they owed? Is that same thing apply to that too?
Yes,
Absolutely.
absolutely.
Under this new law, there's no discrimination with Section 8 or public assistance. So if any of you know anyone, that has been denied an apartment because the landlord said, we are not accepting Section 8 or we're not accepting public assistance, that is against the law.
I'm like, where are they supposed to live? I mean,
Yeah.
like in a box, I mean, like, it doesn't
Yeah.
make no sense.
Exactly.
That's just straight up evil.
And what do we know, right? We know that the property owners that do, the landlords that do accept it are the people who completely disinvest in their properties and offer inhumane, unsafe, and undignified living conditions to their tenants.
People are desperate,
Exactly.
trying to find a place to live.
Exactly. And so this year, and it's actually not part of the HSTPA, it was a separate law, but this year, discrimination based on source of income, it's what it's called, was passed. And so a property owner or landlord cannot discriminate against someone because of their source of income, which includes a housing voucher or Section 8. And so that has to be accepted by any landlord towards the rent. And yet again, you will still see that listed on properties. Do not accept Section 8. So you need to notify your social service agency if you see that, and or your local legal services of this region.
Or your elected official.
Or Tiffany. Or Tiffany.
They keep on raising the rent. Like it's a rent cap, like a.
So that is part of the new laws that we're fighting for is rent control and rent stabilization. Because they can raise the rent.
But why would they raise the rent if people are struggling to find and work and they only work in one job and they raising their rent and then they're just purposely trying to kick you out because they know they can't. They know that you don't have really no way out. So you have to basically scrounge and hustle and whatever to just to live in a box. I mean, in a house, have a roof over your head.
Yeah.
And that's just sad, and it's just completely it just ticks me off all the time.
Yeah,
So
and that's why
I don't know.
Tiffany and the rest of the Common Council are moving towards trying to pass ETPA, the rent stabilization system here, and it's why we're trying to pass.
Why is it so hard to pass? I mean, it should be like, bam, pass it. I'm like, we don't want our people outside and living out on the streets and whatever, and the people don't want to build a homeless shelter or whatever. You know, they just want people out on the streets and just have them just hanging like loose threads. I mean, there's like, we're just dangling. Like, we need help. We need some attachment going on here. You feel me? And then we're just getting cut.
Yeah.
That's why we need your voice, more importantly, and not only here at the forefront, but when we go to the Capitol, we need your voice loud and clear. We need everybody there. I don't drive, so that's not an excuse for no one else.
We don't realize.
Well, if we do drive, we can do a carpool. Y'all don't remember
We can
carpool?
carpool.
Y'all don't
we can do
remember
all
getting
that.
buses?
So,
Our
right,
corporation provides transportation.
right now,
All of you, that's the reason.
right now we are in the middle. For those that just joined us, we are discussing the changes of the housing laws that affect us and that now include upstate New York. But I'm gonna put that on pause because the guest of honor is here. Mr. Jumaane Williams, let's give him a big hand. We also have our young lady spokesman Molly here from Catskill. So for those that just joining us, I'm just going to quickly repeat what I said earlier. Our executive director of this building, he said he will not join us in this meeting because he wants the residents to speak freely and honestly and not be intimidated by his presence, which is a good step for an executive director. Also, I have Molly here, who's representing Catskills, Hoppino's Public Housing, because they have the same issues that you all have in this building, particularly under public housing, and we need to come together to fight this battle together so that people can have some place to live, safe, clean, healthy place for them and their families. So with Jumaane Williams here and his experience with a council member, running for lieutenant governor, being a promoter, protesting, demonstration, everything under the sun, he's going to help us and teach us what to do and how to do it and to do it right to get a great outcome for us. Thank you.
afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Sorry I'm running late. Thank you so much for inviting me here. Molly, nice to be with you, and Rebecca, who does awesome work, Citizen Action. But I want to give a special round of applause to Tiffany. Tiffany does awesome work, and is known across the state and the capital, and that's pretty rare for aldermen in the state to be known for all the work they're doing. So I just want to say thank you so much for all the work you continue doing. As was mentioned, my name is Jumaane Williams. I was a council member in the city of New York. I ran for lieutenant governor for the state of New York last year. And thanks to Tiffany for her support, it's very hard to go against the governor.
Yes.
And she had the bravery of doing that, and so I want to thank her again for that. We almost made it. We got really, really close, but I didn't make it. But I did get elected to something called a public advocate in the city of New York. In the city of New York, there's 3 citywide elected officials. There's a mayor, there's a public advocate, and there is the comptroller, which is basically the treasurer. And so we're excited about that. Continue to do the work that we were trying to do across the state and the city. Housing is what I came through my career as. I was a tenant organizer, community organizer. I always say I was that kind of before Barack Obama, so nobody knew what a community organizer was at that time. And my mother told me I need to get a real job. And I was trying to tell her that this is a real job. And so housing has been a very big thing for me. I think a lot of the other issues that I also fight for are connected to housing. Like if you're sick and you don't have a permanent place to live, it's hard to give up. And if you worried about work and all those things, it's hard to have a good mental space if you don't have a permanent place to live. And communities are what really help people learn and grow, and housing is very critical to that. And what I loved about this past year, and thanks to everybody who's here, I'm sure they started talking, we had a phenomenal banner year when it comes to housing in the state capitol. They're not here, but I want to give the Senate Democrats a round of applause and the Senate and the Assembly. But the real change happened in the Senate Dems, who came in people who really who didn't mind bucking the system, pushing back against. We got some things passed that I've been working on for 20 years, and people longer than me. And the package that we got passed, none of us thought would ever pass. Like, it was just remarkable that this is just a remarkable piece of things that happened. But there's still so much that has to move forward, and that's why I'm still doing my best to connect with folks across the state. Because when I traveled around as lieutenant governor, the issues that I thought were just New York City issues, it turned out that all across the state, everybody was dealing with it. And many of the issues that are so hard now in New York City, it's like I'm traveling back in time because we're seeing some of the same things that happened right before the homelessness crisis and the boom in housing in New York City. I see it happening in towns all across the state. We want to prevent that from happening. Also, the reason this happened is because we had an upstate-downstate alliance like we never had before, and we stayed connected. And that connection is really what helped drive this. And there's so many other things that need to be done, including good cause eviction, including making sure that public housing is funded in a way that it hasn't been funded in a very long time. And I firmly believe the only way that we'll be able to do that is to move forward together. Yeah. And so that's why I want to travel as much as possible. And I know all the women said, I'm here to provide all the answers. That's not true. I'm here to just kind of give my view of what we can do and answer as many questions as possible. How many people are registered to vote? Okay, that's awesome, because that's kind of number one. Today's National Voter Registration Day, so and out of that, you can maybe find somebody who's not registered to vote and register to vote. And if they're not able to register to vote, you can get them involved with someone like Tiffany or someone like Citizen Action, because there's still things they can do. By the way, if you know people who were either on parole or on probation and have finished everything, they can register to vote. A lot of folks don't know that, so we want to make sure we're making sure that they know that. They should be told, a lot of them aren't. So I want to make sure everybody who can register to vote definitely register to vote. But that's really a big thing, because unfortunately, elected officials pay attention to communities that vote. So that's always number one. Like, if you can register to vote, you got to register to vote. And the squeaky wheel does people listen to the squeaky wheel, and so We can't be quiet in the pain that we're facing. Thankfully, we have the Senate Dems now. We have people like Tiffany who are pushing. But I don't know what's the funding that's needed for Bliss Towers. But I know that public housing has been woefully underfunded, just generally speaking. In New York City, we're probably up to about probably $40 billion that are needed to fix the public housing system. And I know
And that is one of the main issues, that we have here in the city of Hudson and in Catskill. So this building right now, it's under its, I believe, third different executive director.
what is executive director? Is that the chairperson?
He basically runs the building,
Oh,
makes
runs the
the
building.
orders, and then
Okay.
and then goes to the board for approval.
Okay.
But for many years, this building has been neglected, and the people have been suffering. A lot of people were afraid to even come here today because of their fear of the executive director listening, like, oh, they're telling on me, and then fear of a turnaround of using some type of excuse for an eviction. I myself have witnessed this. I've been going to court with some people who have reached out to me as an advocate, and I've heard the stories that the judge has listed about the eviction, and nothing has to do with rent. So it's a big issue and it's a big problem, and the judge said it on record, out loud. He said, what's going on with all these evictions coming out of Bliss Towers? Are they trying to get rid of the people because they can't sell the building? I mean, the judge literally said that. The issues with this building, we have mold, we have leakage, we have damage to the elevators every week. We have staircases that are closed, locked 24/7 a day. Of course, we have bugs and bed bugs and roaches and so forth. If there was a big fire here, you have residents in the building as a community sticking plastic bottles in the staircase trying to get everyone in and out. But once you go down to the main floor, it's locked. It's locked. And that is a huge issue. I myself has been bringing it up plenty of times. I had news cameras here. And there has been a retaliation against me for speaking up for the people, which is fine. But the problems still remain. Right now, we are at a standing point with the executive director because we need funding for this building. We need funding to rehabilitate the building, to sustain the building. And we're getting all kinds of mixed messages of they don't want to help us, or they want us to knock it down and build another one, and they want to look for developers and give the developers more percentage than public housing. So what does that mean for the residents? Does that mean that the developers get to take over and make the decisions of who comes in and out? Does that mean that the people have to fill out for Section housing and move Section 8 housing and move out when there's no Section 8 apartments here? So where is everyone going? How do we organize together as neighbors that live in public housing, whether we're already here on the waiting list? How do we make sure that if the landlord was to raise the rent because there is no rent stabilization, rent control put in place?
The landlord is the state or the city of
The
Hudson?
landlord is the state for this building as far as federal housing is public housing.
Okay.
But if landlords in outside of this building with Section 8 refuse or raise the rent so your Section 8 voucher is not acceptable, and they decide to give the developers the upper hand, where are the people going? That is the main fear. And I constantly tell the people we need to speak up, we need to organize, but I understand the fear. I understand the fear. But, nothing happens unless we speak up. And I witnessed that, with Rebecca bringing tons of people across the state to the Capitol. I heard people crying. I seen people in wheelchairs and disabilities, but everybody was at the table fighting for their housing rights. This meeting is important. This meeting is to organize us through Jumaane's words, because this is it. This is it. This is it. This is it. And this is so serious because if you look from Albany down to New York City, we have how many buildings of public housing under one authority? right? We have 10, 15, 5 buildings. We only have one building here. What is the problem? We only have one building here. What is the main issue that we can't get the help that we deserve? Now, I need you all to fight with me. I need you all to fight with me.
So I'm Molly, and I work with the Hoppanoose Tenants Association over in Hoppanoose, and I'm sorry I was late. I've been so scrambled because it's basically me and a handful of people working over there to try and fight 80 units from getting evicted. People, if they show up to our tenant association meetings, they get put on the eviction waiting list. Then they're targeted. We have cameras pointed at the front doors at Hoppanoose, waiting for people to screw up. We have people making calls about loud noises in the middle of the day, in broad daylight, when the noise ordinance ends at 11 p.m. So you have kids running around and neighbors calling in because they're probably connected to the executive director in some way, calling saying it's too loud, turn your music down. It's like there's kids running around, little toddlers, let them. Kids need to yell. We have river rats there because we're right on the creek there, so rats this big coming into people's apartments. We have holes in the wall. We have holes in people's kitchens. We have gaping holes in people's kitchens up above, leaking down onto their stoves. We have staircases that are crumbling. We have maintenance mechanics being told, who have worked there for a dozen years, being told, you can't help that grandma take her AC unit out. She was supposed to do it last week. I sent her a notice. She's going to get a fine now because she didn't take out her AC unit. And then the maintenance mechanic is being told not to do it. It's not my problem. It's not your problem. And that's what he's being told. He's been taking care of those people for 12 years. He's seen their kids be born. He's gone to funerals, and he can no longer carry out an AC unit, which I know all of you guys would do to help. The fact that this many people showed up in Hudson, you guys have it good over here. I know it's shitty. I'm not saying you have it really good, but in Catskill, we had a meeting, me and Sadie Wilburn sitting right here. We had a meeting of the Hoppanoose Tenant Association that was her and me staring at each other from across the table because nobody else was brave enough even to show up to a closed meeting in somebody's house. So the fact that all of you guys are here, you should pat yourself on the back for showing up. And please come to the next meeting. We can't do this without you. Some of you may have seen the list, the petition. They released a petition last year. HUD threw it out because it wasn't done in the right way. So we redid it this year. We sent it out. Some of you may have seen it. If you signed it, we say thank you. We just got we finally, through things that I'm not even allowed to talk about, which sounds crazy because we had to do it all behind closed doors because Catskill is worse than Hudson. We don't have people standing up to come to meetings. We don't have people who don't live in housing to come stand in our meetings. We don't have people who are in housing to come stand in our meetings. We show up and it's just us to our board meetings. It's pathetic. We don't know what to do. It is so conservative over there. It is so white. It is so scary. They can threaten me. I don't care. But they're going to come after every tenant organizer we have. So we all need to stand together. There's no way we can do it if we don't stand together. And it needs to be public, and we need to go to the Capitol, and we need to go to our local legislators, and we need to show them that we're not scared. And if one of us has an eviction, we all have to go to that courtroom and stand with each other. When the person goes up, all of us stand together, and we need to be there for each other.
No, good.
But do you guys get it? Like, we're at a crucial time right now. Yes. We don't have any space to say,
There's no space.
That's Catskill. And Catskill has no space to say, that's Hudson. We are all under public housing, and it affects us all. And if we don't stand up and fight back and show them that we give a damn about where we live, then they're not going to give a damn about us. Water rats. We're starting to have rats here. We see the traps all around outside the building. So if you see those black boxes outside this building, that's for the rats.
The other
So-
thing is, in Catskill at least, our HUD 50-year contract is coming up in the next, I can't even get my hands on the damn contract, but it's coming up within the next 5 to 10 years. Once that happens, we've had confirmation from our village board director that he doesn't want HUD to be in Catskill anymore. He wants everyone to go to Section 8. They want to make it a park, or they want to make it condos. They want to do some riverfront development and raise the whole building. That's what they want for their tenants. They want them out. They want them not to be able to walk around. They want their kids to not be around their family. Who the hell knows? So I keep telling people, it's not just about your eviction. This is about everyone's housing. This is about HUD no longer being a thing. Pompanos being gone in Catskill. And I'm sure that could happen to you guys.
We have,
taking off the reservation. Just,
Yes,
you know, and
that's
just
exactly
making
right.
a whole new place for people just to play and not just to live. Or, you know,
Willie Valley, all
they need
over.
buildings
How
and
many
not.
units are in this building?
it's about 135.
32.
And that's including the low rises in the back.
They want to tear those down.
About how many units are present here?
It's about 100 and...
No, how many are present in the meeting?
We only have a few people that don't live here. So majority of people live here.
No, that's dope, because, you know.
And the residents raise their hand of Bliss Towers. The residents raise their hands of Bliss Towers.
Can the residents raise their hands from Pompanos? Hey, girl.
No, I was saying to what you were saying also, because when I was organizing, if you could get 10% of a building out, you're doing an awesome job. So to see so many people here is phenomenal. But, you know, the only way that this happened was everybody cared about this across the state. And I'm glad to see Citizen Action folks looks like trying to use the same model when it comes to what we call a NYCHA in the city, but just public housing, generally speaking. Like, if the Catskills are teaming up with New York City and teaming up with Hudson, we will win whatever it is that we're asking for.
Can you repeat that one more time?
If
For the people in the back.
If the Catskills are teaming up with New York City or teaming up with Hudson, then we will win. Like, they can't. We won because we all stood together. And, you know, I know New York City is really always the behemoth, but we understand that we also can't do it without the rest of the state. And so we want to use whatever powers we have for everybody, and I think it's vice versa. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, I'm one of the residents here, and I have a question, because you did say Albany, and you didn't say Albany. You mentioned downstate New York and Catskill and anything. How about Albany? Albany's the capital, and it has multitude of
I did
housing.
mention Albany.
Yeah,
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
I just meant people are here, everywhere. So the way we did this was we took everybody from across the state.
Them too.
Yes.
So with this law that passed, Maria, this was reached to everyone across the state. And that's the reason why it got passed. Okay, the new housing laws. But why we are here today is because of the issues of Bliss Towers and Pompanos.
Yes.
Tell us, you know the issues.
Is there an official tenant association here?
No.
No.
Oh, you gotta get one of those.
And to be honest, they have tried and failed and tried and failed. There is a mistrust within the residents.
Yeah,
And it's not the residents' fault, it's because in the past, the executive director had the power of division in the building.
Yeah, I mean, that's,
And
Today's day one of a tenant association in Hudson.
Yay.
So mark your calendars.
Don't fall behind, because Miss Bernice is coming to get you.
And just to go to your question, so I'm with Citizen Action, but I'm also the upstate coordinator for the Housing Justice for All Coalition, and we are working with residents of public housing in every area across upstate to fully fund every one of those cities. So there are meetings like this happening across the state. So you will be in good company in Albany, when I anticipate I'll see all your faces making your voices heard. When you sign it, I'm going to let you know every single time, believe me. And when you form your tenant association,
one question
we will
at a
join
time, please. Yes?
How will we get there to go to Albany, the rest of us?
We will organize, so we will get vans, we will
Okay.
get whatever we need to do. Because I don't drive, but I'm gonna make sure we get there.
All right.
We have 4
One
seats.
second, she has a question.
I was just, if you guys can give me some ideas of how I can hit Hopper-Nose tenants and get that fear out of them. I mean, they will not show up because of retaliation. I'm right now in the process of an eviction because I've had friends in the high places and our administrator was threatened by me. So she told the chairman of the board, I gotta get Sadie and her clan out of Hopper-Nose. So, I mean, that's what Hopper-Nose people are fear of. I'm fighting it, I mean.
There are laws that, and I gotta make sure I'm right, because I know the city, but I'm pretty sure the multiple dwelling law in the state, that gives tenants the right to organize.
The
And,
multiple dwelling law.
and it allows you, it prevents retaliatory eviction for that. So is there a legal services working?
So we're working with, there's one lawyer who serves Catskill from Legal Aid, just one. And if he is representing one person and there's a multi-tenant conflict, he has to choose the first person who calls. So we almost didn't get a lawyer for Sadie's eviction.
Well, what can we do for that area? Because you have the right to organize. They can't, well, they do and they do. But they're not supposed to evict you for organizing. So what you need to do is, like, it would be great if you can plan a meeting that has attorneys there and let tenants know that attorneys are there. Like, write down, find out what the law is when you invite them, and write it down on a piece of paper saying this is what protects you and gives you the right to organize.
We've tried so hard to start a tenants association over there.
Yeah, but I don't hear anything that I haven't heard before. Even a division in the association, all that happens. There can be 2 people in an association with a division, so it's not abnormal, but it's things that can be worked through. Fear is real, so you can't tell people that there's no reason to be fearful. But I think you can set it up so that we're addressing it as best as possible, and the alternative of doing nothing is worse. And that's what you have to drive home, because the building is falling down around you, and so we have to do something. And I'm concerned about only one attorney, and so I want to figure out how we can have a meeting maybe with some more support system there around that.
I've called a dozen attorneys in this area.
Yeah, we worked a lot with clients.
The transportation, the people don't have a way to get to where they need to get to attend these meetings. Is it possible that you could let the tenants know where we should be to these meetings? I don't live here in this building, but if they have to get to where they need to get to, I know I work for a bus company, and maybe they could volunteer a bus to us or something like that.
That would be for a meeting outside of the city of Hudson.
Yeah.
The meeting is open to the public because we need the public's help as well.
Yeah.
But this is for the residents inside the building, so they don't need to travel.
No,
They just come down the elevator.
Right. But I'm saying, you were saying that we need to.
Yeah, that's why we're organizing to go to Albany.
That's what I'm saying.
That's why I said we will get a van or something of that sort, because I don't drive either.
Right.
Yes.
That's what I'm saying. If you can't get a van, or the van isn't big enough, or you need a bigger bus or something like that, inform me, and maybe I can inform the people.
Absolutely.
That we can go, yes,
We will organize.
yeah, that we can.
Thank you.
It's always a way to do something.
Would you like to be the captain of the tenant association here?
I own 6 people. That's it.
That's fine, but we can do things like ask the city, or ask the organization or things of that
What did I tell
nature.
you at the last one? I live in Hudson. I don't live in a ward. I live in Hudson.
Right,
Y'all with
thank
the
you.
wards things, y'all.
That's how
But
I
I don't
feel
live
too. I don't live in a ward.
I live in Hudson.
Hudson.
That's all I say.
Well, I thank you for being here because you live in Hudson. Any other questions? Because this is very important. I don't want you to come to me after saying, but Tiffany, say it now.
But we got, because, listen, the rent is going up, but the paycheck is not going up.
Right.
And we've got to let these people know, listen, we were struggling to pay what we was paying you before.
Right.
Now we got to really struggle to get this done? What are we gonna have to do? Sell a kidney?
That's
Is
it.
there something, Hudson, back up, is there something along, okay. Is there something, excuse me, Rebecca, is there something along the lines that can protect people in public housing as far as when the income rates? So one of the main issues that we have that I don't think has ever really been addressed, but it's always been a concern. So we have adults and your income goes, your rent goes by your income. So we have a situation where your child wants to get a job.
Yep.
And they want to be independent, they want to help mom, they want to get their own school clothes and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But the rent goes up. So how can we address it to where the rent is, even if it has to go up because of a child's income, but can the percentage be lowered? Because it's still the same percentage as an adult that goes towards the rent. And if the child doesn't pay because they spent their money, then that's another cause for an eviction because the rent is up and the parent can't afford it.
Right.
I always thought that under 18, they couldn't
It doesn't.
even touch their income.
At
Like,
18, that's when it counts. If there's a if it's a summer job or after school job, if you're under 18, you are entitled to like $480 a month before it starts
Let me tell you
counting.
what does count towards your income. So let's say, for example, the child, the parent is working, they work hard, and the other parent was to pass away, and now that child receives survivor benefits. Those survivor benefits are included towards the rent, no matter if the child is a newborn or not.
Yes, income in the household.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a bill now, I think it's in Seminole that has it to try to prevent some youth, even over 18, from being counted in. So that might be something that folks can work on when you're packaging the issues around public housing. Because if it's some youth job, we don't think should count toward it, but it does.
Yeah, I mean, really what we have, right? What do we have? We have systems that are set up to ensure that people never have the opportunity for upward mobility, right? The system is working exactly the way it was intended to, where there is no mechanism for anyone to never mind move toward home ownership, move towards safe, dignified, stable housing, right? That's the way the system's set up, and it's working exactly as it was intended. And so, you know, as Tiffany and Jumaane and Molly have so aptly spoken to, this is why it's important to be engaged. In a situation where it's so easy to be discouraged and feel disenfranchised and feel that nothing you do matters, last year was an example of how it does. How when people show up, and Tiffany's very kind, but me being in Albany means nothing. Me being Albany means nothing. What happened last year was people like you being in Albany. That's what mattered. And there's a sign-up sheet back there, and every single person in this room, I beg of you to sign up, because we accomplished what we accomplished because of people like you saying, I'm tired and I'm not doing it anymore. And people listened.
And
right?
the sign-up sheet is for you to receive information from Citizens Action, along from myself and New York City's public advocate. So you are aware of the changes, the laws that's coming up to be voted on, and where your presence is needed. So don't think that, oh, the executive director here is going to see my name on that sign-in sheet. It's not for him. It's for us. It's for you.
I mean, it is critically important. What really worked, I mean, they did a lot of behind the scenes. Showing up was incredible. Like that Capitol full of tenants sent a remarkable message time and time again. I think they had Tenant Tuesdays.
Every week.
Where tenants were just going up and talking to legislators. That was critically important. The same thing had happened with residents for public housing. If we just focus in public housing residents from all over the state starts coming, they'll get scared and they get nervous. They basically, elected officials are worried about losing their job, and they want to keep their job, so they want to keep people happy. And the people who make the noise, like, they respond. I'm sure, the governor, lieutenant governor would love to hear from all the residents of public housing across the state and use what they're scared of against them, which is re-election. That's why.
That means we go there and we say, we're not voting for you, you're not helping us. You're not helping us. That's the fear. You know, these elected officials, not me, but these elected officials, they make a lot of money. They make a lot of money. They don't live in public housing. They don't take the bus. They don't take a cab. So that's the fear. You want your job, you want me to circle your name? Help us. That's your power.
That's right.
Who's gonna fight?
Every
Who's gonna fight?
The governor's trying to go for a fourth term.
I know.
Can I ask you a question?
He got some nerve.
What did Tiffany say? If you don't do what we say, we won't vote for y'all. I don't know, is there a way that we get it done before we get the vote? Before they get the vote?
That's what we're talking about.
No, is there a way that happens?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, cool.
That's what we're talking about.
They won't get my vote.
That's right. And you tell it
Until
to
it's
their
done.
face. And you tell it to their face.
Until it's done.
That's right.
Until it's done. We tell our kids, you can't get your allowance until you mop that floor.
That's right.
You can't get our vote until you pass the bill.
It's not you gotta shut some stuff down too. I don't know if
yeah.
you talked about that, but you gotta get in the streets, huh?
Yeah, please.
No, I mean, I'm into getting in the streets and shutting stuff down. Stopping the cars from moving. Like, that's how far you gotta go. Sometimes they don't listen until you force them to listen. Like,
Do you guys remember years ago, working with Kite's Nest and a group of us, we were sending a message out against police brutality. And they didn't like us for it, but we got the word out and we got what we needed done. And what we did was a die-in. And we laid down in the middle of the busy Warren Street, and we laid right in the middle of the street sending that message. You know, we won't tolerate it. So we need to do that for where we live and if we want to stay here, right?
I found that, you know, when there's a bad police shooting, folks will come out and do that. But some of the other things are killing the same people just a lot slower.
Yes.
And housing is one of them.
Yes, and housing
So we need the
is one of
same age, we need the same energy, the same fervor, the same thing when it comes to housing. Housing, education, it's the same thing, but housing, like we need to come out. I'll come back up here and dine with you. Like everybody across the state doing that. We start shutting some stuff down, people will listen. What they think now is they'll hear a couple people complain today, maybe a couple people complain in 2 months, then 2 months after that. We need consistent pounding on the door. We are not going away until this is fixed. These are our homes.
That's right.
But there needs to be a commitment of doing that. And people have committed before, but this past year was the first time I saw sustained commitment. Like people were like, I'm done. This is my life. You're gonna get this done. That's it. And they got it done. Are people gonna do that? Y'all committed?
Be our brothers and sisters keeper, and we are going to be our brothers and sisters keeper in Catskill. We have to help them. We have to stand together. We fall under the same umbrella.
We might have to do an action. You said Catskill is a lot more conservative, right?
Yeah.
So we might have to go over there and make some noise.
So actually, we have a meeting tomorrow in Catskill at the Catskill Housing Authority building that's right at the edge of Hoppano's. We have a board meeting, and your executive director is going to be there.
She means the ones that you pay rent to in the rent office of this building is going to be over there.
And he is going to be there, and he's going to be announcing some news tomorrow.
What time?
I'm not allowed to say what, but it's at 4:15, and it's, I think, 32 Bronson Street in Catskill. So there's a ramp to the building. It's a brick building. If you guys come, if any of you come, they will take notice, because it's usually just us or no one. If I'm busy, no one's there.
How about, is everybody on the Facebook page here?
No.
What time is it tomorrow?
4:15.
Can anybody make it tomorrow?
I can, but I don't have transportation.
We're going to organize transportation, so that's why I'm asking if anybody's on social media. Who's coming to Catskill tomorrow?
I'll find you guys rides. I have a car. I'll come to this parking lot. Yeah. And I'll pick you up. I'll be here at 3:45 tomorrow.
There's anybody that needs to go to Catskills tomorrow.
Please write your name and number on that sheet too.
You can hand up all the Catskills
Say this and I
Maria?
like to do what I say I'm gonna
in the back, and this one right here. No, with the red. With the red necklace? In the back.
Now I can be here at 3:30
Ma'am,
outside.
with the sunglasses? Ma'am, you said you would go to Catskill also? Yes, I will. Okay.
Thank you.
And make sure she gets
And
the
you?
sheet.
This brother over
Maria?
Yes.
You got a few people who make some noise. Scare them.
That's great. Thank you. Great. We'll pass it to you next. Thank you.
They are going to see a change coming because we are putting our feet down and we're not going to take it anymore.
That's right.
They should, I don't know where your city hall is, but you should come in the city hall too. Yeah, they should go to city hall first and make some
And just so, I'm going to be giving you make sure you put your name on there. And so do me a favor, put a star in your name so we know you can get right.
I'll be there at 3:30.
Okay, great.
I have a question. Are people allowed? I know we're.
We have one quick question, so I want everybody to hear it, please.
What is the, do you have to register a tenants association with HUD? Or do you just have to do the 4 rules of it needs to be democratically elected, every single person's invited, regular meetings, and no one from the authority or board at the meetings? Is there a registration? Because our board, the head of our board, who just stepped down because things are too messed up, and she was a tenant and she was getting a lot of flack for it, she stepped down, but she was telling us that we weren't, and spreading rumors to everybody, that we weren't a real tenant association because we weren't registered with HUD. Now, from my legal research, that didn't seem real, so, but she keeps maintaining that, and then nobody comes to our meetings because of that rumor.
So there's 2 things, you may know the answer, I don't know the answer. I know in
Okay.
NYCHA, they do officially register with NYCHA, so NYCHA knows.
Okay.
But my philosophy is you don't have to register anyone to be an association.
That's
Like
what
you
I
can be your
thought.
own association. I don't know if you're officially recognized, so that's a question that we should probably just answer. I don't
Yeah,
know.
we've looked, we can't find any precedent for there to be a registration requirement for them to organize as a tenant group. There's some wild stuff happening in Catskill, some really wild. And we talked earlier about how, you know, there's your rights and then there's what really happens, right?
But the point is, as long as we stick together, the fear will turn around.
Yeah.
They will generate the fear.
Yeah.
Because we're not going to stop
Yeah.
until it gets done.
What helps the fair is people.
Yeah.
The more people you have, the less fair it comes down. Because everybody's going to be supporting each other. But you also got to be consistent.
There you go.
So you can't do it today and skip tomorrow. Like you got to be consistent with that.
That's right.
And to continue with that consistency, in the city of Hudson, we have a housing and transportation meeting. And that is where we discussed this law before it was passed. And we had the city of Hudson Common Council pass a support resolution of the law before it was passed. So if you can mark this down, next month in October, on the 2nd of October, we have the meeting a little late in the evening, but it gives a chance for people that work to attend as well. 6:45 p.m. and 6:45 p.m. And that's at 530 Warren Street in City Hall.
We don't just mark it down. Who can make it? Who can make that meeting? Let's do another. You got another sheet of paper here for me.
6:45.
You got another sheet of paper?
Yep.
You do some. This is for the meeting on what day?
October 2nd, City Hall.
October, what day is that?
Tuesday.
Tuesday, October 2nd, at City Hall. Who can make that? All right.
So with that being said, that's our meeting, and City Hall is open to the public for everyone. But with that meeting, we can have the press there, the newspaper there, and get our word spread and let it be known throughout the city. We're not playing.
Maybe you can do a little press conference right before. Before you go in, press conference with the folks who were there, so let the press know what's popping.
Absolutely. I want to hear other ideas from you all of what else can we do to help you with this battle.
Just keep fighting for them, I guess.
We're going to keep fighting regardless. Because people, there's a perception within this building, right? And with all public housings, right? Ooh, the people in there are criminals. Ooh, the people in there, this, that, and third. And we have to change that. Because the perception of this building is hardworking people. The perception of this building is community. It's families that know how to come together when it's time when the shit hits the fan.
That's right.
So we have to change that perception. For many years, Jumaane, I would advocate for the people before I was an elected official, and I would let the people know at that time, if you're feeling chest pain, you better make your way downstairs. Because it was set up to where the ambulance would not come to this building unless the police was escorting them. And if the police said they were out on a call, guess what? The ambulance wasn't coming for you. So I used to let people know you better make your way downstairs and flag a ride to get to the hospital. It's the only way you're going to live. Especially with the staircase being locked here. If there's a fire to this day, it's still locked.
Staircase is locked?
Yeah, we can go right now. We can go right now. Let's take a trip.
What's up, everybody? I'm in Hudson, New York, at Bliss Towers. This is a public housing. And remarkably, the housing issues that we have in NYCHA, New York City, they're dealing with here. And we're trying to unite all the residents of public housing across this state. This is Tiffany Garriaga. This is the alderman, like the council member down in New York City. Up here is called alderman. We have some tenant leaders here, some youngsters. Say what's up. So something crazy happened. They told me that the staircases are locked. This was remarkable to me.
24/7 every day, 365 days throughout the year, no matter what.
So if there's a fire in this building, you can't get out. So we're here now. First of all, it says emergency exit only, no re-entry. Is there another staircase?
There's a staircase throughout the whole building, and they're all locked.
So we're gonna go out right now.
This is one, and this is two.
And this is the main one in front
Same
of,
thing.
I see it.
and this is the main one in front of the
So
elevators.
there's a fire, come on here.
So the elevators will indicate to the people if it's
Who's
not
coming down?
working,
Anybody
take the
coming down?
staircase.
This is remarkable to me. All right, so we're gonna close the door right now. This, God forbid, pretend there's a fire in this public housing, and you can't get back in. You're stuck. If you came from upstairs, you can't get to here. Now, God forbid, you're running down. There's a fire. You're running down. God forbid, you're running down. Everybody's trying to get out. It's locked. You're stuck. I hope this is wrong.
We have to bang on the doors and hope that somebody come out their apartment.
There's a lot of fire.